Good evening. Good evening. How are we doing, everybody? Got one person in the chat, Corey Barton. Congratulations, Corey. Corey was first this evening. This is not only a rarity, this is incredibly unexpected, as the arrival of Corey Barton usually signals the end of our program. Tonight I am writing solo once again. Matt hasn't gotten back to me. I thought that we had kind of figured out that it was going to be we rescheduled the show for this evening. I was just wiped last night. So that's on me. I'll take the hit for this week. Sometimes communication snafus happen, but you know, this evening. Oh, hold on. JP7 has joined the chat. Johnny Cage. We need to change the name of your show. There's a TikTok going around saying ancient Rome wasn't real. Dude, this is not new news. In fact, we've covered that crazy woman before on this show. I think she just posted like a new thing saying that the Romans uh were actually Etruscans or some shit like that, which is absolutely wild. I'll have to go and take a look at what stupidity you said now. But like pretty much her whole thing is she's gaslighting all of these ancient history things as being connected to Catholic Church propaganda. Is like the crux of what she's talking about. She's done it for ancient Rome. She's done it for King Arthur. I remember that like blew my mind. Probably like the grossest thing. She has like a whole series of theories on Alexander the Great that are literally just unfounded, just complete asinine bullshit. Um, and we that was actually like a really fun show that we did. We actually had Pax Romana on to chat with us because he's had his own bouts with Mom Lennial, as she's called. He actually did a fantastic takedown of her theories in a video a long time ago. It's what kind of blew up his channel. But Pax Romana is a great friend of the channel, and you know, he's he even helped promote SPQR, which was a blast. Working with him, working together with him to do promo. Uh, so yeah, definitely make sure you guys are subbed to that. But tonight we are going to actually look at something pretty cool. A few weeks ago, this channel Invicta posted up a video on Roman medals of honor, and this is actually something that I don't know a whole lot about. So we're gonna actually watch this. I've already watched the video once, so I'm hoping I can give some commentary. But genuinely, this is something where I do not have as strong of a base of knowledge, and so it was very cool to actually get to learn some stuff. Invicta is a fantastic channel. They really go the extra mile on their research, and yeah, they do great. They can do great things. So we're gonna get started on that here shortly. In the meantime, you know what? They'll do some shameless self promotion. Uh, in the meantime, Judex is currently in its second. Oh, hold on. We got a Crazy Mad here in the chat. Hail Crazy Mad. Thanks for joining us. So Judex is in its second stream, the second 30 days on Indiegogo. We're at $8,188. It's with 117 backers. Getting ever closer to breaking that 5-figure barrier. And yeah, we've just got a lot of great quality stuff. We even added some new things to the campaign. I know that Crazy Mad's in the audience. But we've got who likes to get his hands on some original art of some things. Skunk Artworks did a whole series of sketch cards for us that are absolutely fantastic, and those are up there now, as well as his original art for the pinup he did on ink with ink, acrylic, and oil. That's just outstanding. So be sure to pass the word around. It's exciting stuff. Crazy Matt is asking why I'm not on camera. This is because my main laptop, uh, that I do all that stuff, is currently in the repair shop. So I am on my phone, and I am also using like my work laptop to handle like the share screening stuff, and the work laptop does not allow me to use webcam and stuff because it is a special type of computer that has that up for protection, what have you. But anyways, make sure that you guys are backing Judex, or at the very least spreading the word about it. We've been shadow banned on Indiegogo, so they're certainly not doing us any favors. And we've just got a fantastic campaign, and we even have a crossover book with Von Klaus's Black Terror. We have a little ash can. It's around 12 pages of story. Absolute blast. Crazy Mads, when I can't see the disappointment on your face when I say dumb things, it takes away from my enjoyment. I'm so sorry, but hopefully I can convey that in like super audible size and what have you. So yeah, without further ado, we're gonna stop sharing that, and we're gonna get to this Invicta Medals of Honor video, which I'm actually pretty excited to share with you guys. As I said, Invicta is a great channel. Highly recommend checking them out. Full screen that.
After a long career, Roman veterans would have much to show for it. Decades of distinguished service brought with it not just an extensive list of scars, but also an impressive array of awards. As with modern militaries, these ran the gauntlet from badges of personal distinction to unit-level accolades and campaign medals. All would have marked out a man who represented the best of the best the legions had to offer.
All right, so like they've already pretty much kind of talked a little bit about this here through theirs, but obviously the point of this video is to go through and talk about the distinguishments for the soldiers, and this is actually quite a unique thing. In a lot of militaries across the world, yes, you would like soldiers would like loot and they take war prizes and everything like that. But having an actual like government sanctioned or recognized series of awards that people could be awarded for their acts of valor on the battlefield and everything was actually very unique. We've been joined in the chat by Will, Pace of Creators Outlet. Welcome, Will. Thank you so much for joining us. I am actually going to be hanging out with Will here tomorrow night alongside Global Frequency Studios over there to talk some Judek. We were actually just talking a little bit about that just a few minutes ago. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Corey Barton's letting everybody know that he's still around. Thanks for sticking around, Corey. I hope that you guys have a good time with the show tonight. We're going to be looking at some military awards from ancient Rome, which is really interesting stuff because not even I know that much about these. So this is going to be cool.
So today, let's take a closer look at these Roman Medals of Honor.
Just on the off chance that somebody doesn't know what a Medal of Honor is like Medal of Honor is the highest distinguished award that a person can be awarded in the United States military, specifically the Army. But the whole point of this is obviously to go through and talk about the different distinguishments a person can get, and there's actually some really cool stuff in here. Corey's still around. He's hoping there's some babes. Probably not. We're talking about awards that soldiers get. I promise, man. You know what, Corey? Just for you, since you freaking got here first, I will pick out a bodacious babe of ancient Rome to do a video on, and we'll make sure that it is extra saucy just for you because you have surprised us here this evening. You are normally the the measurement by which that we go, oh, the stream's about to end, on pretty much all the streams that I do. So the fact that you're here first, it warms the heart. So, yeah.
The reenactment footage for this video was provided by the team at Imperium Romanum. They are a fantastic reenactment group based out of the actual Rhine frontier, who produce in-depth documentaries on both military and civilian life.
So what you're seeing back there, I'm going to scroll back just a smidge. So you'll see how a lot of these guys aren't actually wearing what you would expect in terms of like Lorica segmentata, which is that very iconic, that very iconic, segmented armor that the Romans would wear during the High Imperial period. These are what you would see from later Roman Roman units in the infantry. Lots of chainmail, as you see, and like special plated scales over here. Much different helmet. Almost looks akin to like what you would expect from like the Anglo-Saxon helmets from Britain, with the pointed tip, the pointed helm and long nose piece. And we got JP7 saying soldiers didn't get babes as a reward. Like, I mean, they did. Like lots of enslavement and making women personal concubines, but they weren't like official awards set down by commanders or the state, which is what this is about.
And civilian life. Their content is highly educational and extremely well produced, with videos that put Hollywood to shame and are the best we've seen of this kind. Be sure to check out their YouTube channel linked in the description below and give them some support.
That Aquilifer's armor is badass.
So a huge motivator for me making these videos and this channel in general is to try and share my passion for Roman history with you guys, or all the stuff that's under the hood of history that I would have killed to have growing up and just a few years ago, and I'm happy it's come up.
Generals to the myriad of accolades doled out to their lowly soldiers. Combat medals, specifically, have been found as far back as the Old Kingdom of Egypt, over 4,000 years ago. And similar awards exist across many cultures and eras of the past. Thus it was that as the Roman military developed, it would be in a position to evolve upon this age-old practice.
As I said, you would have there would definitely be like rewards for honor. Like, Vikings would very frequently, like a Jarl would award one of his shield bearers with an armoring for distinguishing themselves in combat and enacting bravery. But what this is really going to go into is how Rome evolved the concept of awards for valor in a official capacity. So really good stuff.
The early Romans took a huge number of their traditions from the surrounding peoples and tribes, namely the Celts, the Greeks, and the Etruscans. For instance, the Celts regularly used ornaments, such as torques, as signs of a warrior's status. The Greeks, meanwhile, erected tropaion, or monuments to victory, at their sites of battle. And the Etruscans may have contributed to key aspects of the iconic triumphal parade.
This is always something that has fascinated me with Roman culture, is everyone always points to the obvious influences that Greek culture has on Rome, specifically in its main pantheon of deities, with being Latinized Latinized versions of the Greek gods of Olympus. But there's actually quite a bit of they were influenced by many cultures in their surrounding regions, and probably very prominently influenced by the Etruscans. From a religious standpoint, the gods Janus and Vesta are very unique to the Italian peninsula, and we don't know a whole lot about them, which would make sense if they came from an Etruscan root, because the Etruscans are, from a mythological standpoint, one of Rome's ancestral enemies. the Etruscans, the Sabines, the Latin League, all of these people were the people that Rome was competing with to create a dominant hold over the Italian peninsula when they were coming to. Corey Barton says, LOL, I imagine how hardcore triggered Odin may have been if he had seen Roman armor on women in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So, okay, you have no idea the basket you fucking unlocked, friend. First of all, the armor pieces in Assassin's Creed Odyssey and everything, they're all Greek in nature. The Romans were not a thing by that point. That game series takes place during the Peloponnesian War. So I believe there was actually some colonies here in southern Italy, like where you see you got these Greeks here through Sicily and the lower portions of the boot. But for the most part, all of that stuff is over here in this portion. But what does make me unbelievably angry about Assassin's Creed Odyssey is it creates a very stupid narrative that women had equal rights in the Greek polis. Like the fact that you choosing the male or female protagonist had no consequence on the story of the game was beyond baffling, because it's like you want to see some complete bullshit. A woman walking into a fucking Athenian Lyceum and talking with Socrates about philosophy and shit out in the open. Not even remotely a fucking chance. Like, the Athenians were horrible to their women. So it's like I don't. It's such bullshit, and they did such a terrible. And it's mind blowing because Origins seemed like a kind of revival after the ball drops of Unity and Syndicate. But man, was Odyssey just a fucking slog, and the laziness in design, like literally pretty much every armor set was a recycle of the same 5 freaking core armor sets, just recolored and restatted. And the settings recycled architecture and everything like that. And I get, you want to, there's some cutting corners that you may want to do to try and save time, but especially after the amount of love and care that was put into making Origins feel like an authentic experience of Ptolemaic Egypt, Odyssey was a beyond disappointment, especially as somebody who has always been clamoring for an open world RPG set in ancient Greece during the Peloponnesian War. I could probably do like a 3-hour stream on how that game just fucking sucks from a historiography perspective. They're all going off the chat. So JP7 saying Assassin's Creed lost the plot a long time ago. Used to be one of my favorite series. Same. Unity broke my heart. I didn't play it when it initially launched. I didn't actually play it until like a few years ago, when a lot of the bugs had been fixed, and my friend like begged me to try it. But like, the French Revolution is the perfect time period and setting for an Assassin's Creed game, and the fact that they batched the narrative as hard as they did, and the fact that for the first time in their IP's freaking history, they decided to not have the voice actors sound like they are from the region that the game takes place in, just completely broke any faith that I had. But, and we've got Corey is saying Origins is all right. JP says, "Damn, Corey, you hit a nerve." And I thought it was so funny. They make her look as much as a dude as possible, even put her in male armor. Like, what? Well, like that. That's the whole thing. Is it's like Spartan women had more rights in their polis than any other woman in the Greek peninsula. That's not a high bar. JP7's literally poor man's Ezio is what we got in Unity. Absolutely. It was, well, Connor was bland and boring. Everyone liked and then everyone liked freaking Edward Kenway. But then, man, Unity was just like, oh well, everyone loved Ezio. Let's go back to that kind of character. Except Arnaud Dorian is like the most boring person on the face of the planet. Now, what I will say is, from a sheer atmosphere perspective, if you set the language setting on French for Assassin's Creed Unity, it solves so many of the issues that I had with the voice acting, which helped make my experience playing the game way better. But it was still just, I cannot stress enough how much I despise Assassin's Creed Unity for botching. Like, it's really funny because there's always this big push to try and be more inclusive and what have you. Assassin's Creed Unity should have been Destiny with Assassin's Creed. You should have been able to build your own assassin, choose what social class they were from, all this, because all of that plays into the dynamics of the revolution. Slavery gets abolished in 1792 during the Reign of Terror. Like African and former African slaves play a major role in the revolution from its early stages. Women, the Women's Bread March of 1789 is one of the key things that starts the revolution. There are primary militant revolutionaries that are women. I'm blanking on her name. There's this chick that is known for wearing this like robust hat and always having a chest holster with like 2 flintlock pistols, and she wanted to create a National Guard unit, a militia of women called the Amazons. So much rich stuff that you could have played with in building your own assassin and having them navigate the political turmoil of the terror in the early days of the revolution as it transitions into the Napoleonic period. There is so much opportunity with that game, and it was all squandered. We have a flying feline that stopped by to say hi, and they'll be watching the replay. Thanks so much for stopping by, and everyone's saying hi as well. All right, let's get back to the video though, because we're here to talk about Rome, and we're 30 minutes in, and we haven't even made it 10 minutes into the video. So this might be a multi-episode thing, because I'm trying to make sure we stick to an hour on these.
By flipping through the history of Rome's formative years, we see many records of their gradual adoption. The most common examples are in the proudly catalogued deeds of brave soldiers and generals. Often, these seem to be lifted right out of some Homeric epic where heroes duel one another in single combat.
As stated before, the Romans take a lot of influence from the Greeks due to their southern colonies. The Iliad is probably the most influential book of its time. Odyssey, I'd say, is more popular with modern audiences, no accounting for taste there. But the Iliad was so formative in espousing the warrior's culture of antiquity. When you see a lot of Roman literature and everything like that, and the histories that you have compiled by Livy under the Emperor Augustus, a lot of these battle sequences feel like they're straight up just, this is us trying to make Iliad 2.0.
Issuing challenges before armies and stripping the gear of vanquished foes. But while we might expect such incidents in the early years when the legions acted as mere war bands, there is ample evidence to suggest they persisted in the years of the Republic, when the army became more structured and disciplined. A prime example of this comes with the tale of Titus Manlius, a military tribune who, in 363 BC,
That's right, guys. Titus Manlius, Chad of the Roman Legion. Going on.
answered the challenge of a mighty Gaul at the Battle of the Anio River. Here is how Livy puts it, quote, "The young man's friends armed him. He assumed the shield of a foot soldier, and to his side he buckled a Spanish sword, convenient for close fighting."
So for reference on that, when they say the Spanish sword, that is what we would consider today the gladius. It's important to note that the Romans in their contemporary period would not have considered the term gladius to mean anything other than sword. It would be Gladia Hispania, I think is how it would be. I'm sure if there's some Roman history guy that's also big into Latin, what have you, watching, they'll have an aneurysm at my incorrect conjugations or what have you. But whatever. Point is they were very technical. Like, they didn't have all these fancy names for all their different types of swords. It was, hey, this is a sword. It comes from this place, so that's what it's called.
Armed and armoured, they led him forth to the Gaul, who, in his glee, thrust his tongue out in derision. They then retired to their station, and the two armed men were left by themselves in the midst, like gladiators more than soldiers, and by no means evenly matched, to judge from outward show. One had a body extraordinary for its size, and resplendent in a coat of shifting hues, and armour painted and chased with gold. The other was of a middling stature for us.
As you said, there's a lot of that, similar kind of Homeric epithet to it. Let's kind of skip ahead here to what's going to happen here in the fight.
And fear, the Gaul, whose huge bulk towered above the other, advanced his shield with the left arm to parry the attack of his oncoming enemy, and delivered a slashing stroke with his sword that made a mighty clatter but did no harm. The Roman, with the point of his weapon raised, struck up his adversary's shield with a blow from his own against its lower edge, and slipping in between the man.
Some demerits to the animation on this video as I'm seeing it. The whole point is that this guy over here on the left should be the Roman, and this guy over here is the Gaul. So unless the description is going to talk about the Gaul raising a spear here very shortly, what should be happening right now, according to this description, is this guy's arm should be up and striking or thrusting his Spanish sword at his opponent. But that's just the comic guy in me talking.
And sword and his body so close that no part of his own person was exposed. He gave one thrust and then immediately another, and gashing the groin and belly of his enemy, brought him headlong to the ground, where he lay stretched out over a monstrous space. To the body of his fallen foe, he offered no other indignity than to despoil it of one thing, a chain which, spattered with blood, he cast round his own neck. The Gauls were transfixed with fear and wonder, while the Romans, quitting their station, ran eagerly to meet their champion and brought.
So, as they stated before, the Gauls and Celts that are on the northern border of Italy, they give these neck rings as a sign of distinction. Like, this is a warrior of an elite class. So taking hit from his neck would be a sign of, yeah, I am the shit. And Titus Manlius was certainly that. So
brought him with praise to the dictator. Amidst the rude banter thrown out by the soldiers in a kind of verse, was heard the appellation of Torquatus, and thereafter this was given currency as an honoured surname, used even by descendants of the family. Over time, we see how such events gradually developed traditions meant to honor specific achievements in battle. The notable actions of a soldier, for instance, might earn him a talk, while a general who single-handedly defeated an opposing leader would be granted the spolia opima.
So the spolia opima is actually one of the things that when I first listened to this video was really cool. And it's a thing that you'll see, I wouldn't say a lot of, but a solid amount of from like the early Republic through the rise of the Empire, but then all of a sudden you really stop seeing them. And a lot of that has to do with the political turmoil of Rome makes being a successful general a very dangerous position, because the emperor is likely going to be having their eye on you and being like, all right, you're doing good stuff for me now, but if you get too big, I'm gonna have to cut you down a size and have you killed, so that you don't become a potential political rival and don't have a basis to declare yourself emperor. So they had a whole army of hype man watching the fight. That's kind of cute. Oh, that's how it went. Is you had your two armies go out, and like very frequently, it was, especially when you're looking at things from like the Homeric tradition, you would have these things like, all right, well, we'll have a contest of battle supremacy. Best champion from each side comes to the center. They fight. Winner of the duel wins the war, right? And so like that's it. Like, yeah, you're gonna have everybody on your side, each side cheering like crazy for their respective champions.
Noble spoils of this foe. Marks of distinction could even be bestowed upon entire armies, as can be seen with the raising of commemorative trophies. As was common across the Mediterranean, these were fashioned from the armament of a defeated army and raised upon the site of the battle itself. By the imperial era, Rome had developed a long tradition of recognizing exemplary military.
So this guy is like, I don't even know why they call this guy imperial era. I would consider this like mid-republic with he's got a scaled linothorax, which is a Grecian style armor, and the helmet that he's wearing is a Montefiorno with feathered sides, which is very popular during the Punic Wars.
Service. But, as with many things, the transition from republic to empire brought with it a chance to officially formalize these concepts. Thus, we see how practices that had organically arisen during the Republic were now standardized into a framework upon which even more awards were introduced. Let us now take a closer look at this system by examining what each decoration looked like and what it took to achieve.
These things that are on his vest, they're called devices, and this generally is something that you would see be worn by Centurion, which they're going to get into, but we're at 35 minutes. So as I said, I'm trying to keep these to an hour, and just in case we do not get to that today, and the decision is made that we don't do this video for another episode, I just want to make sure that that is put out there. These are the Centurion devices.
We are always in motion. Awesome. Sometimes it's beautiful. Sometimes it's a blur. But because...
As with modern militaries, these came in a variety of forms. We can begin with the individual awards for merit, which were typically reserved for citizen soldiers. One of the lesser and most common awards was the Hasta Pura. It appears to have been a silver pin depicting a headless spear. The Hasta...
We have a Neff in the chat. Hail nerds. That's a great question, Neff. It's a fantastic question. One that I don't have the answer to. We had said that I had said that we were gonna do this stream tonight. I'm wondering if there was a miscommunication on the time, but I ended up starting without him. So I am running solo, and tonight we're talking about Roman Medals of Honor. This is a video that's been put up by Invicta, and this is actually a Oh shit, Odin got stood up. Yeah, apparently I'm boring my own co-host. It's all good. But anyways, we're actually looking at this Roman Medals of Honor video, which is actually a topic that I don't have as much of a base knowledge on. So this was really cool when I first watched it, and I learned quite a bit. So I figured you guys would get a kick. Neff says I'd be mad. I'd make him buy me a corsage to make it up to me. It's you know what? I might have him do that. We'll figure something out. You can buy me a Lorica Hamada or Segmentada or something. We'll make a big deal out of it.
Tapura was originally awarded to a soldier the first time they struck down a foe in battle. In later years, this criteria seems to have been widened significantly to include defeating an enemy in a skirmish or even in the apprehension of bandits.
So effectively, this would be like from a modern military perspective, if you're a veteran, it would be like your combat action or combat infantryman's badge. It's like, hey, you went to combat, you did something, good for you.
Another lesser award was a small silver replica of a standard known as a vexillium. It is not explicitly stated what circumstances justified this award, though some have speculated it has something to do with the defense of the legionary standard in battle. Other common awards were the Armilli and Torquata. Both were of Celtic origin, with these iconic pieces of jewelry generally being worn by distinguished men of their warrior class. As we saw with the story of Titus Manlius, the Romans proved eager to co-opt such status symbols.
Neff, you missed the story of the chattest Roman ever, Titus Manlius. Nefarious goes, hey, let's not get greedy here. I suggested a damn flower, not a whole suit of armor. I mean, oh, make him buy you one of those pretty bracelets. Sure, why not?
And soon embraced them wholeheartedly with the absorption of Gaul and Britannia. Generally speaking, they served the same purpose as awards for feats of strength and valor.
Well, what are you doing? Silly damn thing. What are you doing? Having some technical difficulties here, guys. Wasn't trying to do that, was just trying to pause it real quick.
The Armilli were bracelets which came in grades of bronze, silver, and gold based on the status of the recipient and were typically issued in pairs.
So I guess this, like, from a modern military perspective, I'd probably guess this would be like a bronze star, which would be like, you know, you did some like it's a serious accommodation, but there are definitely things above it.
Distinguished soldiers could win multiple pairs over the course of their career. The Torquata, meanwhile, were metal rings originally worn around the neck. In later tradition, however, the Romans issued smaller versions, which were usually hung above one's clavicles.
Oh, okay.
These often featured alongside another class of award, the Phalleri. They were large, round medals made of metal, precious material, and sometimes glass that were specifically made to be hung upon a harness that was draped over a soldier's chest. While not fully understood, they seem to have been given for a range of achievements. Some recognized individual bravery or leading a unit to a particular achievement on the battlefield. Others may have benchmarked one's years of service or for having participated in the important battles or campaigns of one commander or another. All soldiers seem to have been eligible for receiving such awards, but it was the officers who were honored with proudly wearing them into battle.
Yeah, specifically the officer that they're talking about in this would be the centurion. Like most of the most of the people that you will see wearing a philura are like are centurions. That's who you see it. Like obviously, commanders you'll see bronze breastplate with the philura over top of it, like how you would see like the statue of Augustus is very prominently shows those. And Trajan has a statue that does that as well. But most notably centurions, and it's a good way also to distinguish years of service, their veteran status, etc.
We can cover some of the awards that appear most tied to specific achievements. A group of these were meant to celebrate the defeat and despoiling of enemies in single combat. For infantrymen who achieved this feat, they were apparently awarded a cup of precious metals, while cavalrymen were awarded a decorated set of horse trappings. However, the most prestigious form of this award was known as the Spolia Opima, or noble spoils.
So the Spolia Opima is probably the closest thing to the modern Congressional Medal of Honor that you can get as a Roman soldier, and it's pretty much relegated to commanders. But yeah, they gave them the Champions League trophies. I want one. Well, go enlist in the Roman infantry several thousand years ago and kill somebody in single combat. You'll get it.
For generals who managed to slay an opposing commander in single combat. By tradition, they would strip their foe's armor, attach it to an oak trunk, and dedicate it in the shrine of Jupiter. Romulus, Rome's first king, was said to have been the first recipient of the award. Over the centuries, many would covet this ultimate prize, but only a handful of generals were officially recognized as having earned it. Here is how Suetonius describes the exploits of Drusus the Elder, who is believed to have been the fourth and final man to achieve this award. Quote, "He is, however, believed to have been no less eager for glory than he was republican in his views. For it is held that he sought to win not only his victories, but spolia opima from the enemy, often pursuing leaders of the Germans all over the field at great personal risk, and that he never concealed his intention of restoring the old form of government, whenever he might have the opportunity." Another group of awards for personal achievement were recognized by a series of crowns. These came in many forms for many deeds.
So
the civic crown, or corona.
Now we're getting into like the major awards, and some of these are actually not as military based, if I recall correctly. But they're all like, these are all things that I think you're going to be getting pretty much exclusively for commanding people. You're like your standard foot soldier is not going to be getting this, generally speaking. So
Corona Civica, which may have also been called the Crown of the Preserver, was a simple ring woven from oak leaves. It was awarded to a Roman who saved the life of another citizen. The crown was to be presented by the man who had been rescued, and from that point on, he would owe his savior a life debt, treating him as a father for the rest of his days. The grass crown, or corona graminia, was similarly rustic in nature, but was of far greater prestige. It could only be awarded by the acclamation of at least one legion, and was given to a commander whose actions were responsible for saving an entire Roman army. Pliny refers to it as the crown of the block.
So this kind of feels like in the United States military, they have like the Audie Murphy Award, which is specifically for a leader who shows like great aptitude, like great aptitude on the battlefield and does crazy shit. So, and I mean, it's named for Audie Murphy, who was was for a very long time considered to be the most decorated soldier of the most decorated soldier of the United States military. So
Caded, highlighting the commander's responsibility for saving thousands of men from certain doom. It was made from grasses and grains that were collected from the very same battlefield, woven by representatives of the legion that had been saved, and presented by the same men to its recipient.
that's such a badass thing. Like that's a great freaking award.
The most famous example comes from Plutarch, who describes the actions of Fabius Maximus in the Second Punic War. At the time, Hannibal had defeated legion after legion.
It's really interesting because Fabius Maximus, is where we get like the term Fabian strategy. If I'm remembering this properly, let me make sure here that this is the guy that I'm thinking of. Yeah, okay. So he was despised by his contemporaries and considered a coward. But his strategy of, we're not going to fight Hannibal outright because he's a better commander than us and he's got better troops than us. We're going to make this a war of attrition, and we're just going to keep effectively retreating from the guy and burning the supplies, applying scorched earth tactics, and then hitting the Carthaginian army in little skirmishes. And his contemporaries despised him and thought he was a coward for it. So it's really interesting that he is one of the people that gets this award. For sure.
Leading the Roman general to adopt the so-called Fabian strategy of shadowing the invader but avoiding contact. Others grew tired of this seemingly cowardly approach and attempted to return to the offensive. But when Marcus Minucius Rufus charged headlong with his army at the Carthaginian, he was promptly caught in a trap and surrounded. Seeing this, Fabius charged to the rescue and managed to save the beleaguered troops. Here is how Plutarch describes the aftermath. Quote, "When Fabius came forth, Minucius had the standards planted in front of him and addressed him with a loud voice as father, while his soldiers greeted the soldiers of Fabius as patrons, the name by which freedmen address those who have set them free. When quiet prevailed, Minucius said, 'Dictator, you have on this day won 2 victories, one over Hannibal through your valor, and one over your colleague through your wisdom and kindness. By the first, you saved our lives, and by the second, you taught us a great lesson, vanquished as we were by our enemy to our shame. And by you..."
So, I do think that this is very interesting because, like, pretty much everything that I've read on the Punic Wars showcases that, like, the Romans really hated Fabius for these strategies. They thought it was dishonorable, cowardly, and yet Fabius would pretty consistently be the only one to be able to do much damage against Hannibal. And meanwhile, whenever the Roman military would try and do an open battle against the Carthaginians, you'd get repeats of Cannae all over the place, just getting freaking decimated. JP7 says, "Those soldiers were crazy eloquent, huh?" I was like, I don't know. You're talking about the writings of Plutarch. He's pretty far removed from the Punic Wars, so like, it's really funny because from a modern day standpoint, he would be considered a secondary source because of how far removed he is from the Punic Wars. But because his histories are of that period are some of the only ones we have that are even remotely close to being contemporary, he's considered a primary source. There's this one historian that had this great this great opening line to his book that Dan Carlin quoted in one of his hardcore history podcasts. You have to believe ancient history, because regardless of how fantastic and ridiculous it may sound, without it, what do you have? Like there's nothing else but what we have. And so at that point, even if it's not true, we have to believe ancient history. So it's a really cool thing.
You to our honor and safety. I call you by the excellent name of Father, because there is no more honorable name which I can use, and yet a father's kindness is not so great as this kindness bestowed by you. My father did beget me, while to you I owe not only my own salvation, but also that of all these men of mine. So saying, he embraced Fabius and kissed him, and the soldiers on both sides in like manner embraced and kissed each other, so that the camp was filled with joy and tears of rejoicing. Yet, during the imperial era, it seems that the awarding of these grass crowns brought with them too much prestige, and thus their use was monopolized by the emperors who received.
Yeah, like that's the whole thing, is once you get to the imperial era, you can't really do stuff like this for commanders, because if a commander gets too big for his britches, all of a sudden they're not just a general, they're declaring themselves an imperial power. They're calling themselves emperor. And you have this happen time and time again. This is what's going to be hell on the empire after the collapse of the Pax Romana, is you have this period where everyone and their mother is deciding, yeah, I'm going to be emperor. Or the Praetorian Guards most notoriously go around and auction the position off to the highest bidder for a while. So yeah,
keep them as a matter of course. One of the crowns which remained unrestricted was the gold crown, or corona aurea. Details are lacking, but it seems to have been awarded to both centurions and senior officers for killing an enemy in single combat and holding the ground to the end of the battle. Another noteworthy award for infantrymen was the Crown of Walls, or Corona Moralis, which was a golden really circle in the form of a battlement. It was awarded to the first man to scale the walls when storming an enemy town or fortress. The Corona Moralis was a highly coveted decoration.
So it's one of these things where people really want this award, but the death rate on this award is insanely high. Like, most people who get awarded it get it posthumously, because it's like, yeah, you're the first one over the wall. But what happens if they didn't breach the wall when you went over? Well, you're now abandoned there, fighting for your dear life, completely surrounded and just getting cut down.
Though, as you might imagine, it was accompanied by an exceptionally high casualty rate. Yet, despite the risks, it proved an incredibly strong motivator for proud Roman soldiers. There are even records of different units coming to blows over whose man reached the top first. In at least one of these instances, during the sacking of Nova Carthago, Scipio Africanus declared that they had both reached the top at the same time, and thus both would receive the award.
JP7 says the next time you go for the award, I want my blood on the. So, the Camp Crown is effectively the exact same thing as the Wall Crown. But instead of you breaking into like the enemy walls, it's you are the first one in to the enemy camp. Also very high mortality rate, but not as bad as the walls. Sieges are bloody business.
Castrensis, which replaced the golden battlements with palisades. As might be guessed, it was meant to honor the first man who penetrated an enemy camp or field fortification in combat. Such a feat was likely accompanied with similarly high risks, though perhaps to a lesser extent than the storming of a fortified city.
I would say that that's a definite lesser extent. Like, going into an enemy camp, yes, it's going to be dangerous, but there's a larger chance of you being able to be relieved and backed up by comrades in arms. You could be the first one over the wall and not have anyone back you up, and then you're just kind of screwed.
Another award to mention will be the Naval Crown, or Corona Navalis, which was a gold circlet adorned with the prows of ships. This award was given to the first man who boarded an enemy ship during a naval engagement. The medal could also apparently be given to triumphal naval commanders, as was the case with Agrippa for his role in the Battle of Actium.
Agrippa is one of the greatest commanders of Roman history, and what he did at Actium is not only incredible, but it makes that battle feel anticlimactic, and it is in a way, but in another, it's just a demonstration of just the tactical genius that Agrippa is. Pretty much the only one that is his equal in his contemporary period is probably Julius Caesar.
So far, we have mainly focused on the vast number of awards which might be granted to.
All right, so they're about to go into the group awards. I'm not gonna stick around and do the group awards. We're at 58 minutes. So with that being said, just want to do quick shout outs to people. JP7 is still here in the chat. Thanks so much for sticking with us through the whole stream. If Neff's still here, thanks for somebody. If not, I'm sure I'll be hearing from you shortly. Corey Barton, it was a genuine pleasure to have you watching the show and not come in at the dead end, and have us kind of cut it off there. Stop sharing this. But yeah, otherwise, and Corey is making sure to let us know that he is still here. That being said, we have a special outro tonight that might even be like the outro going forward. It's so good. It was done by a YouTuber and Twitter guy that I follow, Septimius Nicotinus, and I hope that I said that right. If not, it doesn't matter. It's going to be in the outro. So I'm gonna play that, and then we're gonna close this out. 3, 2, 1.
Anyways, here's Wonderwall.